If you had to introduce Lottie to the world, what would you say?
I would say that Lottie is just really the embodiment of everything that is good and kind in the world. She is just the sweetest person. She really doesn't have like one mean bone in her body, and anybody who has ever met her loves her. Somebody recently said to know Lottie is to know love, and I think that's perfect because she really is just kind and sweet and gentle and innocent. And I think if more people were like Lottie, our world would be a lot nicer of a place.
How old is Lottie?
Lottie is 5.5.
What are Lottie's diagnoses?
So Lottie, we knew prenatally Lottie would have Down syndrome. And it wasn't until last year, when she turned 4.5 that we got her diagnosis of San Filippo syndrome type A. San Filippo syndrome is a neurodegenerative terminal condition. It is sometimes known as childhood Alzheimer's. Typically, children with San Filippo syndrome develop pretty typically for the first 2 years, maybe more, maybe less. And then it's around that time that families usually start to notice some type of regression, typically starting with communication, which is what we noticed with Lottie. And it starts small, and so sometimes it's easy to brush those things off, and then it kind of builds up, which is what happens with us. And after about 2 years of regression, we knew that something had to be going on. So it's pretty tough because children with Sanfilippo syndrome, you're gonna fall asleep, will progressively lose all of their skills and abilities. Their ability to talk, walk, feed themselves, do anything independently, and eventually it leads to seizures and chronic pain and an early death. The life expectancy for a child with Sanfilippo syndrome, well, this is a weird time to dance. Yeah, you go and dance. The life expectancy for a child with Sanfilippo syndrome is between the ages of 10 and 20, typically. It can vary, and children can live longer into adulthood, but that's, not very typical.
On a normal day, are you able to live in the moment? How often do you think about the projected life expectancy?
Sometimes I can live in the moment, but I would say the majority of the time, I really do feel like, especially with waiting on a treatment to be passed, I feel like the diagnosis just kind of hangs over everything. I try very hard to be right here with my kids and to be present and to have fun and hopefully create fun childhood memories for them. But it is really hard because it does kind of overshadow everything. You don't want to think about it all the time, but you can't help it. We'll do something and a memory will come up. And I'll remember something that she used to be able to do and doesn't anymore. And that's always really hard because it usually just kind of comes out of nowhere and will surprise you during the day. And then there is, of course, thinking about the future. Like when I take a picture of my kids, with all of them together, I sometimes think about how many more of these pictures I'll be able to take, or what it'll feel like to look at that picture when Lottie's gone. So yes, it is definitely hard.
What is it like to be Lottie's grandmom?
Oh, greatest thing in the world. It's my first grandchild. She's my best friend in the whole world. When she was little and could sign, one of her, she could always do, the sign for mom is this and the sign for dad's up here. And this is for grandma, and I'm Cha-Cha, so I would walk in the door and it was just, and she could say Cha-Cha for a little bit, but she's she's the greatest thing in the world.
Ma. Hi. 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 I love you. Yeah. Oh, thanks. That's my hair.
How does Lottie communicate?
A combination of things. She still uses some sign in American Sign Language. She used to know up to 60 signs. It might have actually been more at one point. And she used to have a lot of word approximations, so near words or words or the beginning sounds of words, and we knew what she was trying to say. What's this one?
Bear.
What is it?
Bear.
Bear.
Meh.
Meow.
Meh.
Cat. What's this one?
Bear. Bear.
Baby.
Bear.
What are these?
Bear.
Shoes. Yeah, good job. What's this guy?
Bear.
Dog. What's this?
Ah.
Elephant. What's this one?
Bear.
Sheep. What's this?
Bear.
Turtle. Good job. Yeah. Mom. I know, we're right here, Dad. Dad's outside. Is he outside? Where did he go?
Does she sign for her mom and dad a lot?
She does, and those are two of the signs that she still uses pretty frequently. She used to have some signs for like her brother. She would sign for him, and yeah, some of those have they've disappeared, haven't they, sister?
Can you explain what Sanfilippo syndrome does to the brain?
Yes. So Sanfilippo syndrome is a type of mucopolysaccharidoses. So those are all lysosomal storage disorders. And for mucopolysaccharidosis 3, or Sanfilippo syndrome, it means that children are born without the enzyme that breaks down a complex sugar chain called heparan sulfate. I know. And heparan sulfate builds up everywhere in the body and the brain, and it causes cognitive impairment, and it causes high mobility issues. And basically the toxin builds up in the body to a point where at the age of 2 is when you start to notice that it has reached a toxic level, and it continues to do that. And right now there is no treatment or cure that is approved by the FDA, and we are very much hoping that this year we'll get to see a treatment for Sanfilippo syndrome type A, which is what Lottie has.
So I'm sure you were learning about how she was going to develop as a person with Down syndrome.
Yes.
Because those milestones can be varied as well.
Yes.
And then once you kind of got a grasp of it, Sanfilippo syndrome started to pop up.
Yes.
What was that like?
It just was so deflating, devastating. I think it's devastating for anyone to receive a diagnosis of Sanfilippo syndrome. But Lottie worked so hard to reach milestones that most neurotypical children can do with little help, but she needed a lot of help. We did early intervention and lots of therapies, and it just felt like, we had finally started to feel hopeful for Lottie's future as a person with Down syndrome, knowing that she had all this support, and with all this support and help, that she really would be able to live a long, somewhat healthy life, and then to find out that all of our hopes and dreams, all these things we had advocated for and been ready to help her work through in school, and all of those things would look a lot different. It just flips your world upside down to know that she won't be able to do all of these things, but also that it will result in her being in pain, and I think, and losing her early, and that is just that's the worst part.
When Abby found out at 5.5 months she was expecting a child with Down syndrome, and I wasn't sad because she's having a child with Down syndrome. I was sad because for it being their first child, that wasn't in what they were expecting. But, by the time she got here, we were all like, yay. I mean, greatest thing in the world. She's the greatest person in the world. And her disability and Down syndrome never defined her. She's just always our little girl, our little Lottie. And when we found out she had Sanfilippo, that was a devastator, to say the least. Most people don't know what Sanfilippo is, have never heard of it, but we have. My youngest brother's daughter, Samantha, had Sanfilippo. And she died at 11. And so when we got this news about our Lottie girl, that was, unbelievably devastating.
It's also devastating because my cousin had nothing. There was really not that much research out there, 30 years ago about Sanfilippo syndrome. And there were no treatments out there that they knew would do any good. So everything was experimental, and everything they tried made things worse for my cousin. And getting this diagnosis and realizing that there was still no FDA approved treatment, even with all the research that is out there, was like getting the wind knocked out of you, because you would think that after all this time that there would be more for children like Lottie. And it's really, unfortunate that there still isn't, but it's been a very, surreal is always the word that comes to mind. Just hard to believe that it's real life. I know, girlfriend. Oh, you're so sleepy. Sorry. So you just get so tired.
Does she fall asleep anywhere?
Pretty much. And that is kind of a part of it. Daytime sleepiness goes along with Sanfilippo syndrome. Because typically children with Sanfilippo syndrome don't sleep all that well at night. So we see a little bit of that, don't we, girl?
What is it like to be Lottie's dad?
It's good. She's a lot of fun. So, she's really just like a joy to have around, and I love her immensely.
What was it like for you when Lottie was first diagnosed with Sanfilippo syndrome and you learned about it?
It was wild because we had known that Abby had it in her family, but I had no idea that it was in my family. We still don't really know which side of my family it comes from, which is kind of, I don't know, interesting. But I thought, my first thought was, there's no way, it's so rare, that we would both be carriers. It's the odds are crazy in our favor that she doesn't have it.
My cousin actually had Sanfilippo syndrome type A, and that as she passed away at the age of 11, and it definitely moved fast. And I remember her losing a lot of her abilities and being very uncomfortable and not being able to walk on her own or talk anymore at the end of her life, and that was awful.
What is it like to have those memories and now knowing Lottie might experience something similar?
Awful. It is really very surreal, because obviously we're a unique situation. Most people don't know about Sanfilippo syndrome. And so going into the diagnostic piece of everything and trying to get her tested, because we knew something aside from Down syndrome was going on. We knew there had to be another diagnosis because what we were seeing with Lottie. And I would get these feelings over the years that it could be Sanfilippo syndrome, because she reminded me of my cousin. And I would just kind of put those aside very quickly, because I just couldn't stand the idea that she could also have that and would also suffer the way my cousin Samantha did.
So I was kind of in, denial for a while. So I know when Abby called me, I was at work. She called me to tell me the urine test came back positive, and it was just kind of no, it can't be true. It can't be true. No, I don't believe it. That must be wrong. And then we also were well, maybe it's something else. Maybe the urine test was right, but maybe the enzyme increase is caused by something else. So we were looking up oh, if she's got this liver condition, it could be caused by that. I came home from work and I took her in to get the blood work. And so we went in there, and it was just kind of I don't know. You just felt kind of numb, what are we doing? This is, can't be true. I can't imagine it's true, but I'm also okay, this could be true at the same time.
It just got to a point where I knew that it was too obvious. There was too many things leading to this being potentially her diagnosis. And so even when I went to get her tested at genetics, I was really hopeful that they would tell me, no, it's something else. And so when I brought it up to the doctor and she looked at Lottie and said that she could see the features of Sanfilippo syndrome on her face, I agreed with her, but I also didn't want to hear that somebody saw it too. And then getting that first call for her first test was just, it still feels unreal. It felt like I was listening to someone else or someone telling me about someone else's life. It didn't feel like it was real life, and it still sometimes doesn't.
Was it your niece who had Sanfilippo syndrome?
Yes, yes. My youngest brother's daughter.
What was it like for you to go through that the first time 2 decades ago and then learn that Lottie also has Sanfilippo syndrome?
It was really surreal. I was babysitting the kids because Lottie had an appointment. Abby didn't tell me why she was going. And it was the day she was having her tested, and she came home and she said, I had Lottie tested for MPS. And I had to stop for a minute because I'm like, I go, what? And she goes, for mucopolysaccharidosis. And I go, well, why? Why would you do that? And she's like, I just, she had feelings like seeing different characteristics, and she's like, just in her gut, she just knew it wasn't just Down syndrome. It was a gut punch. And then all I kept thinking was, there's no way. There's no way. We had, 2 weeks till we got the results. The day she called, I was leaving work, and I picked up the phone, and I could just, all she had to say was Mom, and I am like, I'm on my way.
When we found out that she was going to have Down syndrome, we were worried about what that would mean for her health-wise, but we weren't we knew it wasn't terminal. It wasn't gonna impact her her life directly. And so we were kind of, all right, let's celebrate her. This is our girl. We love her. It doesn't matter. We're happy to be her parents. I guess we wouldn't wish that condition away because it's part of who she is, and we love that about her. I think, with Sanfilippo, it's something that you do wish away, right? I don't want that to be part of her story or who she is, but unfortunately, it is. So, because when they talk about the genetic treatment, maybe someday there'll be a genetic treatment to help people with Down syndrome to change their genes, or I don't know, make that chromosome not as active, and we're like, no, we would never want that, right? Because that's part of who she is. It makes her, special. But with the Sanfilippo, it's no, we don't want that one. Let's get rid of that.
There is a treatment. It's currently called UX111. It is being produced by Ultragenics, is the company. And it is currently in FDA review for a second time. And we are very hopeful that it will get passed because it's a gene replacement therapy. You go sit up, my girl. It's a gene replacement therapy that has shown that it can very much slow down, if not stop the progression of this disease. And it's not a cure, but a lot of kids, if given early enough, a lot of kids are able to maintain communication skills, maintain feeding skills, mobility skills. And some kids were even able to then learn skills from that point on, as opposed to children who go untreated who just end up losing everything. So we're very hopeful that the FDA will approve that this year, because it would be huge for the whole Sanfilippo community, because there is no approved treatment for any type of Sanfilippo syndrome. There's A, B, C, and D, and there is nothing approved right now.
That must be incredibly difficult that they are doing research and potentially finding treatments and cures, but it's kind of a race against time.
Yes. Oh, yeah. It definitely is. And I feel like Lottie's getting to an age where we worry how much a treatment will help if the disease progresses too much. And I think a lot of families are in our same position where, yes, I think a treatment will absolutely be able to help children of all ages with Sanfilippo syndrome type A if it is able to get passed. But we also know that once damage is done to the brain, it right now can't be undone. So yes, it's very frustrating watching your child lose skills and abilities and some of their personality in real time, knowing that a treatment that could stop or at least slow down that progression is just kind of sitting out of reach.
Hi, Lottie. Hey. I'm
Hi, Prince.
I'm so happy to be here with you. So if I want to be Lottie's friend, what should I do?
Let's see. Hold on. If you can just make sure she doesn't fall over. She likes it when people pretend to wear toys as hats. Should Chris wear a hat?
Oh, look, it's my hat. I've been looking for this hat. Look, there we go.
Does he have a hat on his head? And then you have to pretend to sneeze it off. I'm so sorry.
Oh,
So,
oh, oh, oh. Oh, 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 oh. Oh, 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 oh.
I think a big thing that is unique about Lottie is that she has both Down syndrome and San Filippo syndrome. But it's not uncommon for children to be excluded from clinical trials because of another diagnosis. So while Lottie's dual diagnosis or comorbidity specifically is unique, kids like there are lots of kids like Lottie who will not be able to get into a clinical trial. So an FDA-approved treatment really may be her only option and the only option for other kids. And just, I think having that awareness is good because, and it's, people are so kind and trying to be helpful. And I think when you get a diagnosis like this, a default is, well, why don't you get her into a clinical trial? And we've tried, and but we know that she most likely won't, and so we're trying to strike that balance of not spending all our time thinking about getting into a clinical trial while also still every now and again maybe looking into some. And then I think the other thing is that people often think right to try and expanded use or expanded access, compassionate access to treatments through the company is a little easier to get than it really is. Sorry, she was totally snoring. Yeah, we've also tried that. We've also tried to access compassionate use, and it just isn't possible right now.
I know from my perspective as somebody who's met many people with different disabilities that shorten their lives, and then I see our government spending money on war, and when a fraction of that could potentially save the lives of these people.
Most definitely.
Is that something that you think about often?
Pretty much every day. Yes, I think I knew in the back of my mind that our government and powers that be were driven by money and how they can acquire more and putting money in places it does not need to go. I was aware of those things, and now it is kind of in my face every day because even specifically recently, the FDA passed two GLP-1 or weight loss drugs within like 55 days through expedited approval process. And, we're over a year with Lottie's treatment, and it's had several delays and roadblocks in the way. And it just makes you realize that, wow, it really is. Money is a big driving factor, and it's so unfortunate that it's going to things that we don't necessarily need more of.
And because Sanfilippo syndrome's a rare disease, it's not
going to be.
I mean, I hate to say it this way, but they don't see it as profitable.
Right, it's not a moneymaker. You're exactly right. It's not, and it's just so sad to me that is what motivates people, and I feel like such a big part of why we're on this earth is to help people who can't help themselves, and you know that so well from what you do. You go tap, tap, tap. And it's really, sad to me that people who have power and money just continue to want more power and money instead of seeing all of these potential people, children that they could help, and probably so much easier than the general public could do. It's hard to see that.
All I have to do is sit here like this, and I know exactly the reason she's here with me and with us. Like every time she looks at me, I know why she's here. And I've never had anyone look at me and, sorry, make me feel like I am the greatest person in the world. And that's how she looks like. And I know. And she does give some people the side eye. So I know it's not just, the way she, I know, but I love you. So it's, she's the greatest gift ever. And I can't, it's not, knowing what will eventually be is devastating. But daily life with her is the greatest thing in the world. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
How do you balance those two components?
Lot of praying.
So we have the whole gang here now.
Yes.
How would you describe your family?
Loving,
That's a good start.
chaotic, but fun. I mean, it's loving and it's fun, but it's, See? Yeah. Trying not to sweat stuff. That was a perfect example.
I'm so sorry.
What is it like providing Lottie with everything she needs while also doing that for your 3 other kids as well?
It's overwhelming. I think we.
Takes a village.
It does take a village. We have a lot of help. Obviously, my mom and my dad and Steven's mom and stepdad are a huge help, and our siblings are always around. So they have a ton of aunt and uncles, and we're fortunate to have very kind neighbors who help with the other kids, and we definitely have a huge community that helps us.
When Lottie was diagnosed, had all your other kids already been born?
Yeah, so that's one thing we were really thankful for. Is so Ella was like not even 6 months when we started doing all the testing, and so at that time we had no idea that we even carried this or that this could be a possibility. And so that after Lottie got diagnosed, that's the first thing we did is have the other kids tested, and that was again kind of nerve-wracking, but we were thankful and happy that came back negative for them. We say that all the time, like we're so lucky that none of the other kids have it, and that we have those kids, because if we knew earlier, we probably wouldn't have had any more kids.
If somebody wants to help kids who have Sanfilippo syndrome, what can they do?
You can reach out to your members of Congress, and you can call their offices, or you can email them and let them know that you would like, specifically for Sanfilippo syndrome type A, UX111 to be passed by the FDA, and for Congress to help them or to help by reminding the FDA to use their regulatory flexibility granted to them by Congress for situations like this, where the risk of anything with a treatment is, or the benefits far outweigh the risk, because we know what happens to children who do not receive treatment.
I mean, I think that's the hardest part, is like the regression is just a reminder of where you're headed in the future.
Are you able to live in the moment each day?
Yeah, Abby and I talk about it all the time, that this is like the happiest and like hardest time of our life, right? So it's like we're so happy, like being with the kids and having them all around and having them all be little and have all their little personalities, and it's like we're always laughing at them and having a good time. But then it's like in the back of your mind, you always have that like, okay, well, what's the future hold for Lottie? Where are we going?
Does she still? I was about to say, does she still smile?
She does still smile. Her laugh is she used to giggle and like crack up at things several times a day, and now we could go, I don't know, like several days to a week without hearing her laugh anymore. And she still has an adorable laugh, but I mean, we used to be able to get her to just be in tears cracking up, and we don't see that as much anymore. And yeah, it's things like that that are really hard. What do you think? Where you gonna go? Hi. I know.
It can be difficult sometimes to not go down the rabbit hole of what might be, what's to come. But every day I gotta switch gears and say, we're not we're not going there. We're not going there till we'll cross it when we get to it. We'll take every day and everything with just, one day at a time. That's really kind of all you can do. And just love them. That's just be there and love them. And yeah, I know, you're getting tired. Yeah, I know. Boy, I know. Yeah, I know what you done.
Is there anything else you want the world to know about Lottie?
Oh, I just want the world to know Lottie.